You're watching US Rewind. Today is the story of how one high-altitude photo nearly changed the fate of the world. October 1962. 13 days when millions of people thought, what if war starts tomorrow? After World War II, the United States and the Soviet Union became rival superpowers. The Cold War began. In 1959, revolution in Cuba changed everything. Relations with the U.S. broke down, sanctions and pressure followed, and Cuba looked to Moscow for protection. Another key point: the U.S. placed missiles in Turkey just minutes away from Soviet targets. Moscow saw this as a direct threat. The counter idea was simple and tough. Put Soviet missiles in Cuba, right off America's coast. That plan set a secret transfer in motion. One more note on the stakes. Scientists warned about nuclear risk with the doomsday clock, a public way to show how close the world was to midnight. It wasn't a metaphor for drama. It was meant to wake people up. Equipment and military units shipped under cover of ordinary cargo. Routes were kept secret, with sealed orders opened only at sea. By late summer and early fall 1962, positions were rising in Cuba. The goal was to finish the sites before the U.S. understood what was happening. On October 14, a U.S. U-2 spy plane photographed Cuba. The images show the telltale shapes of missile sites and support equipment. On October 16, a small circle of advisors met in Washington. The room was calm, but the tension was real. A mistake could cost too much. Two options were on the table. First, precision airstrikes and possibly an invasion. On paper, it sounded decisive. In reality, it risked a major war. Second, a naval quarantine, a controlled line at sea to stop new deliveries. No first shot, but it could buy time. They chose the quarantine. In those days, time was the most valuable resource. Time to signal the other side. We see what's happening. Let's stop before it's too late. U.S. ships moved into position around Cuba. A televised address explained the line at sea. Then came hours of waiting. Conflicting reports arrived. One Soviet ship slowed, another changed course. No one wanted to fire first. No one wanted to blink either. Any small thing, a vague radio call or a clumsy maneuver, could light the fuse. Still, some ships did turn away. Those small turns were wins for common sense. On the island, though, construction kept going, and that pressure stayed. A scale note. U.S. strategic forces raised readiness to very high levels. It was one of the most dangerous moments of the Cold War. Across Europe and Latin America, many governments publicly called to avoid escalation. In the middle of the tension, two letters arrived from Moscow. The first felt personal and direct. There was a path to a deal. Cuba's safety in exchange for removing the missiles. The second was tougher, with extra demands. Which letter should be answered? That choice mattered. October 27th, Black Saturday, was the worst day. A U.S. U-2 was shot down over Cuba. The pilot was killed. Elsewhere, another U-2 accidentally strayed into the wrong airspace. Simple chance in a moment when chance could be fatal. Off Cuba, U.S. ships forced Soviet submarines to surface. On one sub, officers even discussed using a torpedo with a special warhead. The decision came down to minutes, and one no held the line. That single voice helped keep the world from the edge. This part of the story is about self-control, about someone saying, "Stop, think again," in the worst minute. A small but important note. The UN Secretary General also pushed for a pause in deliveries and work. Any extra day could help. Washington chose to answer the first, softer letter. The reply offered, remove the missiles from Cuba in exchange for clear security guarantees for the island. There was also a quiet piece. Later, the US would remove its missiles from Turkey. Not every step needs a microphone. Sometimes silence makes a deal possible. Soon, a public signal came. The missiles in Cuba would be taken out. Shipping lanes shifted. People still worried, but you could feel the air getting lighter. This wasn't a victory in the usual sense. It was a victory of no catastrophe. In a nuclear crisis, the best win is when nothing explodes. One more detail. Not long after, the most dangerous pieces were dismantled on both sides. Cuba stayed tense, but the immediate nuclear risk was pulled back. The most important after was a direct line between Washington and Moscow. Leaders could now speak quickly, without long chains of middlemen. In a nuclear world, hours and minutes matter. New agreements began to shape limits on nuclear tests and behavior. The world didn't become safe, but it became a bit more predictable. Another lesson: words have weight. One careless line can burn a bridge. A simple formula, we will do X if you do Y, can be stronger than any threat. And remember the human side. There were famous figures and countless professionals with no spotlight. Translators, signalers, officers on bridges, analysts, dispatchers. Their steady work is part of why we can calmly talk about that autumn today. A few more brushstrokes. Within a year, both sides moved toward limiting atmospheric nuclear tests. Not friendship, just sober thinking after staring into the abyss. First time. Buy minutes any non-violent way you can. The quarantine bought minutes. Minutes save lives. Second, a channel. One direct, reliable line is better than a stack of perfect but slow procedures. In a crisis, speed and clarity win. Third, an exit. Your rival needs a door to step back without humiliation. Corner them and they'll fight, even against their own interest. The Cuban Missile Crisis isn't about who outplayed whom. It's a story about self-control, about people who stopped at the edge and stepped back. You've been watching US Rewind. If this helped you see 1962 more clearly, stay with us. There are many more important stories that are better understood than feared.